Welcome to episode 21 of the Empowering Ability Podcast.
Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast, where we get you and your loved ones impacted by disability the information needed to live a full and meaningful life. Now here's your host, Eric Gall.
Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast. This is your host, Eric Gall. And for all of our listeners, I just want to remind you that we are currently still recording our mini-series on housing for people with a disability. And if that's a topic that interests you, make sure to go over to empoweringability.org and grab the free download on creating your home. It's a great workbook that'll help you start to think about what your vision is for home and how to start to implement that and start the conversation. So going on over to empoweringability.org and grab that for you and your family. So on today's podcast, we have guest Dale Reardon, and Dale is the founder of a platform called My Disability Matters. And the platform, think Facebook for people with a disability and all the other people that surround them that are involved with disability. And Dale started this about a year and a half ago, now early 2016. And he's got an interesting story. So excited to share Dale's story with you and share the conversation. We also talk about the NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme in Australia. That Dale's Australian. You'll pick that up from his accent. And Dale shares a little bit about the scheme, how it works, and how it's supporting people with disability in Australia. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Here's Dale. Hey, Dale. Welcome to the Empowering Ability Podcast. Thanks for making some time to chat with me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Eric.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, Dale, super excited to hear more about your story and have you share that with the audience today. And also super interested and curious about the company you started and the web platform, My Disability Matters. So maybe, Dale, if you could just start us with your story, and then we can roll into the My Disability Matters platform that you're working on.
Yeah, certainly. I'm 47 years old now, and I went blind at the age of 17 through Leber's optic neuropathy, a genetic condition. After that, I went to university and completed a law degree, and I ended up practicing in total over the next many years, about 7 years in total in private practice, doing criminal law, family law, personal injuries, any litigious work. And after being a lawyer and having my own law firm in partnership with a university friend, went into tourism business with my then wife and her family, and we operated several historic bed and breakfasts in Tasmania, Australia for about 7.5 years. And then after that, I've also worked at the Australian Tax Office. And then most recently, at the start of last year, I started planning My Disability Matters. Initially, it was a news publishing platform and republishing, curating blog posts from other people, which we're about to start again, to sort of act as a central repository and spread the word of all sorts of disabled bloggers. And then as we went through a business incubation program to develop our business further, and it was during that in July, August, September last year that we came up with the idea of the My Disability Matters community. Which is based very similar to Facebook in terms of social networking and discussing with other people. But Facebook predominantly is based on communicating with people you already know, or at most friends of friends. Whereas we, like other interest-based communities, are trying to get people in touch and meeting new people and talking with each other around a common interest of disability. although people are quite free and certainly do discuss other parts of their life, going on holidays, having your pets, all sorts of other normal things. But one of the key factors driving the creation of My Disability Matters was the bullying and trolling that I have seen take place on social media. Facebook and Twitter in particular provide great communication methods, but they don't actually take very strong stance against either hate speech or just general bullying of the disabled. And lots of people who've become members, and myself as well, don't often want to talk about their disability issues on Facebook because of how other people react and how they get treated. So we've introduced what we call a respect and tolerance pledge that people, it's just agreeing, like terms and conditions on any website, agreeing to a standard as to how you're going to act in the community, that you will respect other people and be tolerant of their disability issues. And yes, touch wood, thus far, we certainly haven't had any, hatred or mistreatment of anyone. And people are finding it a very good place to open up and meet other people. At the moment, we've got about 1,650 members from all around the world. We certainly have Canadians, Americans, UK, Ireland, and of course Australia, where we're based. So it is providing an opportunity for people to meet others, and we're certainly trying to obtain either government grants or investment from business investors at the moment to expand the club, put in more features that will help meet people near you, and building an app to allow people to use it on their mobiles more easily and those sort of things. When I first lost my sight when I was back at age 17, it was obviously quite, devastating at the time, and you wonder what's going to happen with life. And it was actually through meeting a normal family where one of their children was blind, and the father was blind as well. And I've remained friends with them ever since, up until now. And I stayed with them for several days and just sort of saw a benefit of what life could be like and still be quite normal. So it is the ability to talk to others in similar situations that can be highly beneficial, and that is one of the benefits we're attempting to bring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're creating a safe online place for people to connect and openly speak about and be vulnerable about their disability and learn about other people's experiences or share experiences. And it sounds like that's had an impact on your life as your disability developed, Dale.
Yes, that's right. And I mean, obviously, before the internet and even still now, there's lots of face-to-face supports, and you can meet up with people locally. But lots of people with disabilities have problems, whether it's through money or support with, can't afford transport or going to face-to-face sessions. And I, find myself the internet is a great tool to bring people together and, discuss and talk online. Breaks down a lot of those barriers when people might have access issues otherwise if it had to be a face-to-face thing.
Right. So I'm curious. You've had a very interesting career, from law to travel and tourism, now to an internet entrepreneur. What was there something that really drove you to first creating the My Disability Matters blog platform to help share the blogs of other people that have disabilities?
Yes, really, it was at the start of last year. I don't know if you, but certainly I imagine some of our listeners would be familiar with the site called The Mighty. There was a great I suppose, distrust and anger at the mighty at the start of last year for how they were portraying people with disabilities. Because of, like all publishers and newspapers, there was a temptation for them to use very sensational stories and perhaps arguably exploit people to get more clicks to the website and then get more clicks on advertisers.
Right. So like disability is inspiration type thing.
Yes, what can be known as inspirational porn or ableism, and and the sites run very much from the perspective of mainly parents of disabled people, which I still believe is a valuable perspective, and certainly we have lots of parents as members of our community. But we want disabled people themselves to speak for themselves as well. And that was seen as being one of the problems. The other issue, which unfortunately we still haven't solved yet, but certainly is our desire, is to actually pay disabled writers to write the articles. And as we can get the funding, we hope to employ disabled people as support staff and programmers and marketing roles and all aspects of the business, because I realise myself I've had to face a lot of discrimination in seeking employment. So, we'd like to set an example.
That's awesome. So, I guess you started with the blog platform and then transitioned into the community, and you're up to 1,650 people worldwide in the community. What, you mentioned about your personal experience, but was there something when you're going through that process with the incubator that made that light click on that, hey, there's this need for a community?
Yes, because we had comments, of course, on blog posts, and we were trying to expand the involvement and engagement of people. And the first step we thought of was just to put forums on the site. And at that stage, we were also still planning the writing site or the forums to be a low paid but a paid community. And then it was through this business incubation that we decided to reach and impact the most people. We needed, if at all possible, to make it free to access, and that a full-on social platform was probably what people wanted. And certainly that has been the case as we've spread the word. Yes, people want to use, use it a lot like Facebook, but in a different environment.
For listeners, Dale, how can they get on the platform?
Yes, if they just go to mydisabilitymatters.club, then the homepage has details of what the community is all about and a link to sign up for free as a personal member. We do have a paid option for business members. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we will start introducing an upgrade option, just offering some, special added-on benefits for personal members as well.
Okay, so mydisabilitymatters.club for you listeners out there, and go check it out. So you mentioned it's for people that have a disability. You mentioned there's some parents on there. I'm on there. I signed up. So as a sibling my sister has an intellectual disability. What other kinds of folks are on there, Dale?
Yeah, basically it's the whole range of the disability sector. So disabled people themselves, friends, family, carers, and business people, support workers. We have, physios, OTs, planners. Yes, anyone involved or being touched in any way by disability. And as we all know, and the stats tell us, about 20% of our population has a disability of some sort. There is a big group of people out there that we want to reach and get involved.
So people are connecting and sharing their stories. How else do you see people interacting on the forum or on the network?
Yeah, just chatting and becoming friends. Lots of people. And there's just been a report in the last couple of days released in the UK about loneliness being a major problem with people who have disabilities. People are seeking to not just get support, but just to generally make friends, people that they can talk to and share their life with, so that they feel more connected to other people. Friendship we've seen has become a big part of why people are joining as well.
Awesome. Cool. I guess what else should people know about My Disability Matters?
We've touched on the main aspects, just that obviously we are wanting to get the word out as quickly and as widely as possible. So, people have blogs or news sites or podcasts of their own, and we're only too happy to help with publicity and get the story out there.
Okay, great. So Dale, I was wondering if you could switch gears for a second.
Yeah, certainly.
You're my first guest, or the podcast's first guest from Australia, and I've read a little bit about NDIS. So I was wondering if you'd be able to give our listeners just a high-level overview of what the NDIS is, and what's working, what's not working.
Yeah, certainly. The NDIS stands for National Disability Insurance Scheme. It's started its trials and rollout some 4 years ago now. What it's designed to do is to give people who have a severe and profound disability money that they can then use to take care of their reasonable and necessary needs. Because up until 4 years ago, all disability support in Australia was based on what is known as block funding, where NGOs and charities, non-government organisations, were given grants by the government, and there wasn't any obligation to let individual disabled people choose which organisation they used. The government chose the organisations by who it gave money to, and then they just set about servicing as many people as they could. So the scheme was very fragmented over the whole of Australia. Lots of people missed out on the help they needed, or some people, with the bad examples, might have only got a shower every several days rather than every day like anyone else. So this scheme was brought in with the probably over the whole of Australia doubling the amount of money being provided to the disability sector, but on the basis that disabled people would have more choice and control, so that there's a planning meeting with this government department where it's decided how much help you need and the type of help you need, and then you're free as the scheme rolls out and goes to more areas and more businesses get involved. You're free to actually choose the business and the individual staff that give you the support you need, so that you can actually organise support at the right, the theory is the right hours of the day that you require and the right number of people, and not be bound by just one agency servicing your area, but even individuals, disability support workers are setting up in the rollout areas as the scheme progresses around the country to then let you individually contract with them to train your own staff, or the possibility large disability support businesses still exist and you can use them if you prefer as well. It's going to another 2 years before it finishes rolling out and everyone is covered. When it finishes rolling out, they estimate around 460,000 people will be covered. So the most severe disabilities. Based on the stats, of course, there's probably 4 million people in Australia who have a disability of some form. So they're still working out the precise ways that those extra people with disabilities will be taken care of and supported in the community. But and it's certainly like any government program having some teething problems as it rolls out, but we're hoping, that it will revolutionise the way in which disability care is provided in Australia.
And just for our listeners, my friend at Google here told me there's about 25 million people that live in Australia. So just to help to give that a bit of perspective in terms of percentages that would be covered under the scheme. So Dale, with the block funding, did the government start to cut that back for those agencies that were providing support? How did that work in that transition?
It did, and because budgets are always tight and have constraints, so they have put a special tax levy to help raise some of the funds for the new scheme. Hence why it's called an insurance type scheme, because anyone who acquires a disability, whether it's through an accident, illness, genetics, will be eligible to be covered by the scheme. You do have to get into the scheme before the age of 65, but then once you're in, it can cover you for your whole life. That is a point of contention that was done for financial reasons, but certainly there's many in the disability sector lobbying to have that age changed, because lots of people go blind or deaf or other disabilities after the age of 65, and then they're just now in Australia taken care of through the aged care system, which is not anywhere near as good for disabilities. But yes, the government had lots of limitations on this block funding, and charities had to apply every year to keep getting their funding, and you were sort of at the whim of the government. Businesses are now facing a paradigm shift. In the former block system, they got their money once a year, and they could then plan out and just provide the services within that budget. They now have to compete for services for customers, being the individuals with disabilities, like any other business does in the world. So they're having to learn, and that's one of the things we're looking to add in to services for our business members in the club, to help teach them about marketing and customer management and all those skills that other business people have that the disability sector hasn't really had to be involved in certainly in Australia for quite a while.
Right. Yeah. What's the unique value that I'm offering my customers? Right.
Yes, that's right. They have to learn how to frame their service and take care of people, and provide good customer service. It's the key to any business. It's not just a matter of having your support workers. You've got to make sure they turn up properly. If illnesses occur, people still get cared and taken care of. So all those aspects that they weren't really focused on under the previous system.
So is there a consensus on what's working and what's not working, or maybe you have your own personal opinions on that?
I guess the main issues they're having are the fact that the agency being set up to run the scheme is growing at a very rapid rate as it rolls out. And I personally think they need to work on getting more engagement and genuine co-design from the disability sector. At the moment, things are still being done for us or to us rather than with us. And yes, I would like to see a lot more involvement from people with disabilities in how the scheme is actually run and managed. And, when they propose making changes, even if they see them as improvements, to actually seek consultation and input from people with disabilities, because you just don't know what you don't know. So the administrators of the scheme may be acting with the best intentions, but they could get, very good advice from people actually on the ground. So I think, that's a big change for any government department as well, because normally, all management is done internally. So I'd like to see them engage the disability sector a lot more than they are at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And what is working with the scheme?
Well, it's certainly working in terms of people who weren't getting any help before are now getting the support they need. Before, there was very limited funding, even for mobility aids like, wheelchairs and guide dogs and hearing aids and bath assistance devices, etc. And the scheme is attempting to take an insurance mindset, which means that they look at actually doing modifications to your house or rental property, which might mean you don't need as many support workers. It costs more initially, but it's going to have a much better long-term benefit for you and financially for the scheme. So, yeah, they're taking a longer-term view when looking at what help to give people. But like the rest of the world, the one thing they've discovered is that there is a huge number of autistic children coming up through the scheme, perhaps more than they even anticipated. So that is going to take some, investigation and management over the next few years to keep the scheme numbers under control and to make sure there's enough people providing the assistance that all these new autistic children need. Because, that's a very big expanding area which, the scientists don't even fully understand yet.
Right. So it sounds like the positive, the way that you're speaking about it, there's more positive than there's more benefit than headache that it's causing. Is the feedback from people with disabilities that it's enough money to live on? Like, I guess maybe you have an example of, how much a person would typically receive?
Perhaps what I should explain now, we have, like you were telling me, a disability benefit scheme, which is what we call a disability support pension. So that's the welfare payment side that provides you the income, and there's rent assistance for housing, and that's all provided outside the NDIS and to all people who meet the criteria to say they're disabled and can't find employment or need financial assistance. The NDIS provides additional funding that is entirely separate from income. It's not provided to use for living expenses, but purely for the costs of taking care of your disability. Whether that is to employ support workers, to pay for a new guide dog, to pay for a wheelchair, to pay for additional transport costs going to and from work or to and from school. Perhaps if you can't do it yourself, to pay for home cleaners and home help. So, the scheme, really ranges from some people are getting packages at, 5,000 to 10,000 for the less severe disabilities, and some people at the very top end, up to 500,000 a year if they need, care daily, round the clock, for example. It just depends on the person's individual circumstances. But, the income support assistance is entirely separate outside the scheme. Yeah, the average, not that anyone is really an average person, but averaged out over the 460,000, the cost per person is going to be approximately 40,000. Right. There's going to be people, at the low end and people are higher than that. But from a overall economic point of view, that's where, the average stands per person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that sounds a lot closer to what the actual need is compared to how the system's working here in Ontario.
Yes, because here when they designed the scheme, they tried to, plan for what the actual costs were of taking care of people rather than necessarily, how much the government could afford. And then once they worked out what it really costs, they tried to see where they could get the money from. It still remains to be seen. We've got another 2 years before we know for sure what the numbers are going to be, whether the estimates have been correct. Everyone's looking carefully at the budget until we finish knowing the precise number of people that are going to be included. And, of course, as I said, there's a lot more young people coming up through the system. But it is hoped that with the right support, that many of these people in the scheme with disabilities will be able to get, employment and participate in society a lot more, so that the scheme will then pay back through, either tax system or just general community participation, and that lots of the carers of the people with disability will also be able to re-enter the workforce when they don't have to provide the 24-hour care for people.
Right. There's a lot of there's a ripple effect that's going to happen, right?
That's what they're certainly hoping for, yes.
Right.
As well as all the extra, literally millions of jobs created to help support all these disabled people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's just funny. I was just reflecting on this. I haven't yet covered how the system works here locally. So I do have a guest lined up to talk about that shortly. So it's just interesting that I cover, or we're covering, how the support funding works on the other side of the world before in my own backyard here. But
we do, obviously having the same British origins as Canada here in Australia. We have a federal system like you, where we've got 7 states and territories. So there's still, arguments between state level and the federal level as to who helps fund what. At the moment, it's all been quite cooperative, but, if the budget goes over, then, it will be more discussions as to who pays for what.
Yeah, right on. Well, Dale, I want to respect your time here, so I'm really grateful that you took the time out of your day to talk with me today and to share your story on the podcast. And I love what you're doing with the social network that you've created with mydisabilitymatters.club. So recommend all of our listeners to go check that out and create a profile and say hi to Dale and some other folks that you might meet in there, and make sure to spread the word around about what he's doing. And so just super grateful for you coming on the show today, Dale.
Thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate your time and look forward to meeting lots of your listeners.
Sounds good, Dale. Talk soon.
Okay, thanks.
Big thank you to Dale Reardon for coming onto the podcast today, sharing his story and telling us about the new social site that he's building, mydisabilitymatters.club. And I'll include the link to that in the show notes and the blog, so you'll have easy access to it. You can also check out his blog sharing site, and I'll include that in the show notes as well. And if housing is something that you're working on, feel free to go to the website and get the free download on creating your home. So there's this great workbook that's going to help guide you through creating your vision and starting to implement your vision for what your home looks like. So go on over to the website. It's empoweringability.org. And I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. I'd like to thank all of our listeners that have left us a review on iTunes. Your reviews help me understand what I'm doing well, what I can improve on the podcast, what you want to hear. So it's great feedback that you're providing, so please continue to do so. Also, by leaving a 5-star review, it helps other people find the podcast. So thanks so much for those reviews and keep them coming. So next week, we go back to the mini series on housing for part 4 of 6. And in next week's episode, I shared the story of Rougemont and Diohago. Just briefly, Rougemont is a cooperative housing group that started about 23 years ago. So this would have been in the mid-'80s. And it was formed by a group of families. I think it started off with 10 families and ended up with 7 families in the end. And they got together and got the funding to build a 105-unit apartment building. They really focused on building an intentional community that enabled everybody in the housing unit to contribute in a meaningful way, including their sons and daughters that had a disability. So it's a cool story. friend of the podcast, Janet Cleese, joins to tell a lot of the story, including Diohago. And Diohago is a family collective that is linked with Rougemont and lives inside Rougemont. And there's some folks from Diohago that join the podcast to tell their story as well, and as well members of Rougemont to tell the community side of the story. So it's a really interesting story, interesting podcast. Recommend you check it out. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. Visit us at empoweringability.org for more podcasts and resources to help you and your loved ones impacted by disability live a full and meaningful life.